guys? So today I want to do a video on my results with a ketogenic diet. It seems like keto is a big fad now, but it's really not new at all. I'm going to do another video where I talk about the history of it and why one might want to do it. But the reason I did it is, well, a few reasons. One, I just like to test things out, I like to experiment at this point. But also just for the purported benefits for GI and energy. And so I kind of broke down my results from it. I want to talk about each point here. I do think there are some legitimate reasons to do a ketogenic diet, but it's certainly not something that everybody needs to do. So I know it's a little hard to read here, so I'll just kind of, verbalize everything. So I started it probably about 8 weeks ago now, and almost right away I started getting headaches. Headaches and palpitations with increased heart rate was, within probably 3 or 4 days. So if you're on forums or, look around the internet, you'll see a lot of people talk about how electrolytes are off when you do keto. And there can be a skewing of electrolytes. And so the people recommend taking a ton of sodium. People recommend taking no salt, which is potassium salt, essentially. They mention magnesium and calcium. So right there, you have to wonder if you have to take all of these electrolytes just to feel normal, is that something you want to do forever? For some people, that's completely fine. And some people are taking upwards of 8 to 10 grams of sodium per day on a ketogenic diet. And so I did that and it helped a little bit, but to be honest, it didn't help entirely. I had blood work done. I get blood work done fairly often, just again out of curiosity. And so my levels of all my electrolytes seemed pretty normal. But that, slowly resolved over time. But I found that even exercise that was very easy for me, that would normally have me at 120 beats per minute or so, had me at 140, 150. I would wake up and, if I went to go to the bathroom or something, and I'd just sit up from bed and I'd be at 100 beats per minute. And so that was definitely concerning to the point that I went and got an EKG done, which it turned out was relatively normal, which I expected it to be. There were some PACs there, but that's a fairly normal finding in an EKG. So that's a significant thing, and I don't know if there's too many studies showing the significance of that long term. A lot of people say their heart rate goes down. There seems to be a lot of variability for there, but that was my results. I also started getting some muscle spasms, which again could be an electrolyte imbalance. So I was drinking a ton of water. I was probably at least a gallon a day, along with different electrolytes. It helped, and now that it's been about 8 weeks, I'd say I get very few, although even today I was getting some. As far as my actual ketone levels, I'm definitely in ketosis. Usually my ketone levels range from 1 to 3 using the Keto Mojo ketone strips, and those seem to be pretty accurate. So I'm definitely in ketosis. I'm certainly adapted, but that was happening even within 2 weeks when I was still having those negative effects. And then lastly, which has been interesting, has been the acid reflux. So I never thought I had acid reflux before. I did have an ENT tell me I might have minor reflux in the past, but nothing that I ever noticed. Like when he told me that, I thought he was wrong because I just didn't seem to have any at all. But within a few weeks of going to the ketogenic diet, I definitely started getting noticeable reflux. And it's not, a huge impediment to my life at this point, but I feel it way more than I used to. Just kind of like burping and just not a pleasant feeling after eating. And some people, what's interesting is a lot of people talk about how for a ketogenic diet, their acid reflux goes away. For me, and it seems like maybe a smaller subset of the population, it causes it. So that was another negative for me. Now, as far as the positive go, and part of why I did this is, and I knew this when I first did ketogenic diet in high school, so back in 2006 or 7 now, when I first ever did the ketogenic diet, I was doing a cyclical ketogenic diet at the time, whereas now I'm just doing a straight ketogenic diet to really test it. But at that time, I noticed I would always fall asleep in 6th period. I would just I would have lunch and then I would just pass out. And when I went to ketogenic diet, I remember thinking, okay, this actually isn't happening. I feel pretty good. And again, that's more or less what I noticed. I noticed before going to ketogenic diet, when I would go to the gym, I usually go around 11 or 12 if it was on the weekend. And I would, I'd have my shake or whatever it was. And consistently, I would get to the gym and I would just feel tired. And eventually I'd wake up, of course, but I would feel very tired going in there and I just wouldn't really want to be there. And I didn't really think about it until just recently, but I was thinking, that hasn't happened since I've done keto. I actually haven't had that lull in energy. I've just been going to the gym and it's been great. And so definitely a benefit in energy there. GI standpoint, Definitely feeling better GI. I just don't have the bloated feeling. Now I'm also eating less volume because there's so much fat, and fat is very calorically dense. And so, you're just not going to have as much volume of food. So I just feel a little bit less bloated. I feel kind of just better throughout the day. So I would say there has been a noticeable GI benefit there as well. And these two are significant. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit that. Those are both very significant. And I would probably consider this longer term, but I'm going to touch on some of these other issues I had. They're down here because I can't say for sure if they're entirely good or bad. And so, strength, some people are really worried about strength on a ketogenic diet. Personally, I didn't experience that at all. Some people say they just within a week or two, all their strength was gone. I mean, that's obviously an exaggeration, but they say a ton of their strength was gone. For me, I literally didn't notice any difference in strength. It wasn't down at all. So for me, that was fine. Sleep is a very interesting one because, there's a ton of research on sleep out there. And, most of the time they say on average 7 to 8 hours a night. And I've always been a poor sleeper. I usually wake up 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. Just really since high school, that's always been the case. And so for me, I noticed that I was getting even less sleep, but I can't say that I've really been any more tired throughout the day. So in theory, and I've heard other people discuss this, saying that maybe I just needed less sleep. That is a common report on a ketogenic diet, is that people got an hour less of sleep consistently, but they felt about the same. And so, from the psychological standpoint, I see, oh man, I only got 6 hours, and I kind of freak out and think, well, I need to get more sleep. But when I actually step back, I'm not really any more tired throughout the day than I was before. It's pretty similar. I have days I'm pretty tired, I have days that I feel great, but it's not that different. And so there's a downside in the sense that you're getting less sleep, and maybe even if you don't feel more tired, maybe there's something going on there. But the upside is that maybe you need less sleep. And so I think you can look at that either way. And then blood values, very interesting. So I usually get in-depth blood work. And so before I did the ketogenic diet, I got an advanced lipid panel. So of course that includes HDL, LDL, total cholesterol, and triglycerides, along with some ratios. But it also includes the subfractions of LDL. So I had LDLP, LDL particle. I had, small LDL, medium LDL. It measures the different sizes. ApoB, and then Lipo-A. And I think ApoA1 as well. So HDL did increase as expected. Not a huge increase, but it went up probably about 10 points or so, from about 70 to about 80, 85. So, and that is good, and that's a very good HDL. Triglycerides, about the same. The first time I got it measured, after about 6 weeks, it was up slightly, and then it was down slightly. But on the whole, it's around 60. So triglycerides of 60 is fantastic as well. And so, not something I would be concerned about. Both of those are great. My Lipo-A went down. However, LDL skyrocketed, and not just, like I said, not just a little bit. It really went up. It went from about 100 to about 240, just as the LDL. Total cholesterol went from about 200 to about 340, and then when I tested it again recently, 370. So very, very high levels. Now, some people, when they see that, and they'll say, well, that's just because the good LDL went up, and it's the big fluffy LDL, as they say, and, that's fine, but that's not what my blood work indicated. So my blood work indicated that, for me, the bigger LDL did go up a little bit, but the small LDL actually went up even more. It tripled. And so that is of concern. There is some debate now as to if total LDL is, that important, and, you can talk to 10 different people and get a bunch of different answers there, but it's pretty much agreed upon that small, dense LDL is going to be problematic. And so for mine to triple and go from already being like borderline to now being very high is concerning, I think, long term. And it's unfortunate because other things in my blood work, and this is why I put it down here, were great. So my HSCRP, which is a measure of inflammation, it was already 0.3. It stayed at 0.3, so that's great. My HbA1c was around 5.3 or 5.2, which is good, and it went down to 4.9, and then just recently 4.6, so that's fantastic, very low there. What else? My ESR, another measure of inflammation, went down a little bit. And so all other measures on my blood work were fantastic across the board. There's the D dimer, which can indirectly measure inflammation. That went down as well. So again, I'm very happy with my blood work except for that one value. But that one value is very important. Or at least that's what the current science shows us. And so some people would argue, well, if your HDL is great and your triglycerides are great, then you don't have anything to worry about. I see that point, but I think when LDL is that high, there may be some concerns there. And so I was not, and this is actually an important point, I was not doing a ketogenic diet where you just go on and have bacon and sour cream and all these other things like that all day. I actually had no dairy. I didn't have any refined foods or anything like that. I stuck to whole foods. It was beef, chicken, avocado, olive oil, sardines and salmon, things like that. And so there was certainly a decent amount of saturated fat, plenty of saturated fat, but still just like the whole food sources and stuff like that. It wasn't, all this junk food or anything. So my next experiment is going to be another 6 weeks where I'm keeping the calories and the fat and all that pretty much the same, but almost exclusively having my fat come from avocados and olive oil. And I mean, that's mostly it, those sources. Minimizing the saturated fat and, fish oil, things like that. And seeing where that goes. So that'll be my next experiment, and I'll definitely make an update then. I have a hard time believing it's going to make that much of a difference. I've seen other people say it didn't make that much of a difference, and it's not like I said, it's not like I was having just pounds of cheese or something like that before. So I don't think it'll change much, but I will do an update on that. So that was my experience on a ketogenic diet. There's going to be a ton of varying results to this. I don't think there's any real harm in trying it if you really want to see how it affects you, but I also don't think you should try it with the hopes that it's going to be some magical diet. There are benefits to it, but it's not a magical diet. It's also not a fad diet. It's been around for a long time, and it's not what I would call fad, but there are definitely certain reasons for it, and there are definitely reasons to not do it. So if you're interested in it, look into it further. I'll make another video or two on it, but this is my results, and I thought this could be helpful for everybody.